Alright, in this video we are going to talk about one of the most important things in Photoshop, your preferences. Preferences are found under Photoshop, Preferences, and we are going to go over all of the things right here. Okay, so the shortcut is Apple K. Now, I'm going to talk about the preferences that I use as a background painter, as a character artist, as a prop designer. Let's just go over this real quickly. The color picker, always select the Adobe Color Picker, don't select the Apple Picker. The Hud Color Picker, which I will show you on another video what it is, just leave it as hue wheel large. The interpolation of the image by cubic automatic is the best thing. Under options, the only things that I have selected are dynamic color slider, use shift key for the tool switch, which I showed you in a previous video. Deselect the following: animated zoom, that takes a lot of video RAM memory, zoom with scroll wheel. Only use that if you have a 3-mouse button that you use with Photoshop. If you use a Wacom pen or any other type of tablet, deselect that. Enable flick panning. It's really fun at first, but then it becomes very annoying. Same thing with beep when done. It's just gonna get in your nerves. Export clipboard, select that. Resize image during plays, select that. Always create smart objects when placing, because when you place an image, you wanted it to be a smart object, meaning that it retains all the quality, the resolution, and you can shrink it, scale it, rotate it, do whatever you want to do with it, but it always retains that resolution. Zoom resizes windows, select that. Deselect zoom click point to center. I don't find that useful at all. Vary round brush hardness based on the Hud vertical movement. Select that. And I will show you real quick what that is. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. If you hold the Control and the Option key, right, while you have the brush selected, you will notice that when I click and I go left and right, the diameter gets bigger. And when I go up and down, the hardness changes. Okay, so that's why you want to have very round brush hardness based on the Hud vertical movement selected. Now let's go to the interface. I like to have the dark gray color selected because I find that as a painter, the colors stay in their true sense, meaning that they don't, if you have a light background, for example, something like this in your canvas, your colors seem too bright, too strong. And if you have it in black, your colors seem light and weak. So either pick the dark gray or the medium gray. I recommend the dark gray. Plus the icons stand out more with a darker color theme. Leave everything below color under dark gray. I covered that on a previous video. Obviously the text, change it to your language of preference. Same thing with the font. If you are fine with a small font, keep it small. That way when you open a menu or a sub menu, they don't take the whole screen. All right, under options, auto collapse icons palettes, that will be covered in the palettes video tutorial. So open document as tabs. As you can see, I have this file right here. In the regular screen mode, you can see the tab, you can see the file name right here. But when you go to full screen with menus, you don't. This is really good if you have a bunch of files open and then you want to travel between the files. There's two ways of doing it. One by clicking the tabs, and the other one is by going to the windows. And then if I have more than one file, it will be at the bottom and I can select the other files. That way, when you're working on full screen mode with menus, if you're not seeing your tab, all you have to do is go to Windows and then go to the bottom and select the file that you want. Okay, let's go back to our preferences. The enable floating document window docking, that's good. Have that selected. Show menu colors, obviously have that selected. Show the tooltips. The tooltips is those little windows that pop up when you move your mouse on top of a word or a menu or an icon. I recommend have those selected. It helps you remember the shortcuts, for example, for a specific tool. Enable gesture is good if you're using a laptop. Don't use enable text drop shadows. It just takes a lot of memory from your computer. Sync settings is designed to sync all your preferences, workspaces, actions with other computers, the Adobe Creative Cloud. You have to be signed in, you have to have an account, obviously, and you have to upload it, and then when you're in the other device, you can download them. All your settings can be the same for many devices. File handling, very important. Image preview, select always save, because when you save your files, specifically on a Macintosh, you can see the little thumbnails of what your file is. Save icons, definitely save icons for window thumbnails. Save as to original folder, save in the background, automatically save recovery information. I have 10 minutes. If you have less than that, it slows down your Photoshop, so I don't recommend that. Now, the next settings are the signs for the camera raw preferences. Have prefer Adobe Camera Raw for supported raw files selected, ignore the rest, and ask before saving layer TIFF files. This is very important, and we'll talk more about that on a later video. Performance. Now, performance is one of those things that you have to let Photoshop decide how much memory you have, how much video RAM you have, what type of a graphic processor you have or video card. That's where the VRAM comes from. So select use graphic processor. Let Photoshop decide how much memory you have and what the ideal range is. So I have about 16 gigabytes of memory. The ideal range is between 8 and 10 gigabytes. So I have it slightly below at 68% of the memory that I have. That is because I use other programs at the same time that I use Photoshop. So I don't want Photoshop to hoggle my memory. Under history and cache, leave it to tall and thin, default, and big and flat. These are the default settings. They work perfect. Don't mess around with them. History state, very, 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 very important. One thing that you have to know is that Photoshop, you only have one undo. But if you're using history, you have many history states. So every time you do a brush stroke, every time you do a copy, paste, delete something, all those actions are recorded in your history. Now, you only have one undo. There is a shortcut on the Mac. It's the Option Apple Z, and you can navigate up in your history, but not more than 200. I've noticed that anything above 200, let's say in the thousands, your Photoshop will be very, very sluggish. Leave the cache title size to 1K, okay? It's just, it's very good if you have a low graphics card memory. I only have 1 gigabyte in this computer. All right, let's go to next. Those are scratch disk. A scratch disk, it's an additional hard drive. It can be either internal or external that Photoshop uses to make calculations on your performances, meaning that every time you copy something, every time you apply a filter, Photoshop uses to make those calculations. So if you have an additional hard drive, you can plug that in into your computer, and then Photoshop will recognize it, and then you can select it, and you will notice a big improvement. All right, let's go to cursors. See you soon.